What is the Beltline? It's this long circular path, and in that path will go
a pedestrian-friendly rail system, bike paths, and pedestrian walkways, all moving people, connecting them to public transportation, to parks, to jobs, to economic prosperity.
Does the Beltline do all the checking of the boxes? Do they have a website? Yes. Do they hold community meetings? Yes. Do they send out email? Do they have a Facebook page? Yes, yes, yes.
City leaders, educators, and health experts tout the Atlanta Beltline's long-term benefits that come from 45 vibrant, strong, safe neighborhoods linked by optimism.
Do they really let the public know what's going on? Absolutely not.
I'm all for racing hell. I mean, I think there needs to be an outlet to have all the voices heard. It is an interesting thing that the Facebook page for the Beltline used to be driven by the community, and then it essentially, it's a strong word, it got hijacked.
Can you go to their website and get any information that you really need? No. When there's studies done, current studies done, are those on the website? No. Are the finances of the Beltline on the website? No.
The East Side Trail is going to open in a year, and the hours on it are dawn to dusk. And we're not supposed to use it when it's dark. And this is a major connection from Reynoldstown to Cabbagetown to Piedmont Park and all those neighborhoods in between, but we're not supposed to use it if it's dark. They say it's going to be safer for us to be on Boulevard or Ponce or Moreland, which is crazy. It's just crazy. But no, there's no coverage of that because there's nobody left to be the voice of the people. The Beltline is the voice of the people and the voice of the Beltline.
My family and I have lived in this neighborhood, in the same house, since 1976, and we've seen tremendous growth in the neighborhood. It's hard to see, but behind this fence is Midtown Center. It has Trader Joe's, Starbucks, it has the movie theater, all sorts of things that are very attractive. But this was just a swamp. Richard's Rose Room was down here for the old guard, and you could see great concerts back in the day, but it was really a swamp. Right behind us there was the trolley barn, beautiful structure that was torn down for these garden apartments.
We have Rug Shop, we have Local Luna, great restaurant. We back up onto the Beltline, even here, even though we've moved, we're still on the Beltline, and you can see the Botanical Gardens and Piedmont Park parking deck, and then you can actually see the back of the Botanical Gardens. So we're in a great location. Once the construction is all complete, we will actually have this fence down and we'll have steps walking up into the Beltline. So we'll actually start taking and teaching classes actually up on the Beltline. We'll do running classes in the mornings.
Essentially all of the monies that were raised through the original bond are committed to this section we're standing on, to the northeast quadrant, the quadrant that needs additional investment the least of any of the quadrants. Here was the plan of how you were going to spend the money in the first 5 years. Northwest, $152 million, Southwest, $99 million, Southeast, $88 million, Northeast, $88 million. So, a reasonable balance. None of these numbers have been achieved because there have been all sorts of changes and the economy is bad and there were lawsuits, etc. But when you look at the actual distribution of money, I don't know what the percent is. It must be 70 or 80% has gone into the Northeast.
We currently own the Beltline in the Northeast. That costs somewhere in the $50 to $60 million range. We have, we're leasing where we're standing right now, Southwest, a small section in Southeast. It's a lease from Georgia Department of Transportation. It's a very favorable lease. It's a 49-year lease for $1 a year. And if we buy this section of land, about 4 miles, we get to buy it for $2 million. Huge difference in the potential for development and also the cost.
I mean, you're going to pay more for property in Buckhead that's along the Beltline than you are in the West End. However, that doesn't mean that as much effort shouldn't go into making the Beltline attractive in the West End as has gone into other parts of the Beltline. So, you know, equal doesn't mean equitable, equitable doesn't mean equal, but the idea is everybody to try to give everybody the fairest shake possible.
When I took the Beltline tour, I was frankly, shocked, disappointed by some of the areas that have not seen any development at all, and for which they would be they would be completely hidden unless you happen to take the Beltline tour. You just wouldn't be going to those areas.
Why isn't it happening in Southwest? There may not be opportunities. You know, there's no Piedmont Park Conservancy in Southwest Atlanta to generate funds happening on a park on the Beltline. That's one reason. And then again, infrastructure. Your community in Fourth Ward Park, Fourth Ward neighborhood said, hey, we can do something creative here. And they worked with the city council, the city, their neighborhood leaders to get that park there. And that kind of energy doesn't normally happen and hasn't happened yet in Southwest Atlanta. Hopefully it will.
This was just basically an industrial wasteland. When it rained and this wasn't here, North Avenue would, I'm talking a foot of water. You couldn't even hardly drive through it. So that was one of their concerns, like, hey, let's take this water, let's put it underground, let's rip up North Avenue. And the community said, whoa, can't we just, do something better and make this an amenity and not have to tear up and close North Avenue, which is obviously a heavily traveled street. So everybody wins. You get natural spring water bubbling up here. This is a basin for the entire area. So all the water, rainwater, when it rains really heavily, it all comes to this space. They did everything that they could to make this as environmentally friendly as possible. Plants are native, they're from Georgia. All the stone is from Georgia. They brought it in from not too far away. Each one of these stones was cut by hand and placed, which I think is amazing. For the most part, our elderly residents, people that lived in the neighborhood a long time, really support it because this is an amenity for them. It actually increases their property value in a good way to not price them out, but still make it better for them if they do want to sell their house in the future. And of course, gentrification is always an issue in any neighborhood right now. So they're trying really hard to mitigate that and make it so that people can stay here and not have to leave because this is their home.
One of the most important parts of the project, and without which it never would have gone forward, is the affordable housing piece. That has been established and it's been funded with millions of dollars. I read this morning that of the millions of dollars, there has been down payment assistance made on 2 homes in the entire city of Atlanta. 2 homes.
Part of that is that the Beltline TAD, I believe it can only be used in the TAD, and there's no single family, or there's very little, if not any single family homes inside that TAD. So it's townhouses, condos, and the entire market has crashed for those. If you think of the Pittsburgh neighborhood, which is 50% vacant, none of that money can be used there because we actually drew the TAD so that it wouldn't influence single-family neighborhoods and cause houses to get raised for condos and such. So part of the good thing of designing the TAD was to keep it from affecting single-family neighborhoods, and now we're not able to use that money to improve single-family neighborhoods for the same reason. And so the housing downturn has been a greater reason that those funds haven't been used than anything malicious.
The current concept is to no longer build projects, so to speak, where you stick all of the poor people in one place. You really want mixed communities, mixed broadly defined, age, race, socioeconomic status. You certainly want affordable housing here from very low-priced units to workforce housing, etc., because you have a great community.
Crackhead can only pay so much rent. And we have a little bit of a problem. There's an apartment complex on Maiden Lane, which is a half a block in front of Studios, that a noticeable portion of their tenants are crackheads. And there are like 6 and 7 people in one unit. And they don't care as long as they get their rent. And then you got all the housing projects on Boulevard that, what, 3 of them, 4 of them have already been torn down, and that's definitely going to be huge for the neighborhood just to clean up.
Old City Hall East, Old Sears building, which is the largest brick building in the southeast, has been recently purchased by Jamestown Properties, and they're going to do something pretty cool with it. We're excited about that development also. They're going to leave it in place and use the bones.
Tremendous opportunity. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of residential in there. There's going to be a lot of commercial, probably some office. How are they going to connect with the Beltline? How are they going to fit into the neighborhood? What, especially, are they going to build it for a traffic-oriented community? If they do, we will have nothing but traffic here. Or will they say, let's reduce the number of parking spaces? Let's create expectations that people want to come here via light rail, or come here walking, or come here biking, or come here some other way than their individual cars. That's the real test.
We want this to be an active place. We want people here doing things. We want people walking and biking and hopefully taking public transit here. So being engaged with the space is part of the thing. Making it lively is part of the aim, part of the goal. I'm part of a big committee of people who work their fannies off and put together this first thing last spring, summer, Art on the Beltline. That was 34 or 36 works of art and performance. So September, October, November this year, it will be Art on the Beltline. We'll have works of temporary public visual and performing art all over. Maybe as far as Montgomery Ferry to Memorial Drive. Beacon Dance Company did a year-long project last year called A Bountiful Feast. We as movers, dancers, and sculptors, and theater artists and writers looked at food and how we relate to each other by food, how we bring food with us when we immigrate from one culture to another, or how we keep our culture alive through food. Also, looking at our own personal experiences of having a good time based around food, picnics and family events and stuff like that.
We would like to get a little bit more community art in here. I think that would be kind of a long-term plan, and we'd work in tandem with the Beltline. Yeah, this is one of the art pieces by Maria Artemis. She used local granite to make the sculpture, and then the water coming out. And this is actually exactly what we intended for this space. Just sort of a hangout, climb on the rock, and play. This is a really good example. What's your favorite part about the park?
I like the water that goes past that little black hole.
Oh yeah, that looks pretty neat. The rock is sprayed with coating, so it makes it difficult for graffiti to stay on the sides. We are concerned about that, but we also feel like that community has already expressed that they don't want, this is kind of a sacred place. They don't want to come here and mess that up.
Nobody wants to have somebody come tag his building. So, but on the other hand, especially back here where nobody's been coming for 100 years, the back of City Hall East that is an unoccupied building, it's a great place to come and tag. You know, down in the West End and some of the tunnels, there's some graffiti that's been there for 10, 15 years. we kind of look at as artifacts. You know, it's kind of vintage, and a lot of it's really good.
Every graffiti artist that we know of in the city now was influenced by this work. But there's a concern that, you know, somebody could show up and this would disappear in a flash. So nothing is permanent, nothing lasts forever. And not everyone's a fan of graffiti, and as our neighborhoods gentrify, there's a lot of concern about aesthetic in the communities and buffing graffiti. You know, and it speaks volumes to what's going on in our city. You know, if you think of the graffiti on the east side of town, northeast side of town, there's a lot of young people with a lot of resources, and there's a lot of graffiti. And you think about the west side of town, and there's not a lot of young people, and there's very little resources, and there's been no new graffiti for 20 years. It's a huge statement to what's going on in the neighborhoods. We need to continue to be engaged and involved and find ways to make sure our voices are heard. You know, currently, there aren't any. You know, we have a meeting every once in a while. Those meetings take in some information, and that information is used to make some decisions. But we really do need to be a strong community and have strong voices to make sure that all of the information is on the table. And, you know, again, using the Dawn to Dusk East Side Trail issue, that's just one small issue, and you know, hundreds that need to be decided, that if we're not actively engaged in a dialogue, those decisions are going to be made for us without us.